video I will be sharing with you how to build this great calculator. As you see, it looks good. We will be building this in no time. So as you see, you can correct what you've written, you can reset it, you can divide, you can multiply, and then subtract, addition, division, and as you see, it works even with decimal numbers. We can multiply that by 2.5 and then divide it by 0.5, which is multiplication by 2. And here's how it goes. You can even remove the 5 from here and then multiply by 2. That's not everything. As you see, it's responsive on different devices, even on phones, different iPhones, Pixel 5, iPad Air, and even for any three-dimensional device. It works amazingly. And even for the Apple Watch, it would work. So let's get started to build our modern calculator. We'll start by an empty index.html, right? This is like the folder, JavaScript Modern Calculator. As you see, I got an index.html in it, empty file. I will call it Modern JavaScript Calculator, right? That's the title. Let's save. Let me refresh the port. So as you see, the first step is to build this whole container, and I will call it calculator basically. So got a calculator div. Inside this div, we got a span with class input and ID input. So as you see, the point makes this class automatically, and the hashtag gives it the ID input. Let's try 0 on it. Then we got the bottoms, right? So as you see here, we got this input field, and then we got the bottoms. So one more time, dot buttons. Then we got different bottoms inside these. So we got a bottom with class bottom and class operation. OP stands for operator. And then we got, as you see here, so let's call it AC. So for this one, I will give it directly an ID AC, right? Because it's special one and unique. And then I will duplicate it. We got DC, as you see, we got DC, and it's also an operator, and I will give it ID DE, sorry. ID DE. So then we got the dot and the division. Then we got the bottom dot. So it's the same, just with ID dot. And then last but not least, we got the division. So one more time, I will duplicate it and I will call it divide. So let's be sure to create all the bottoms. So got now the numbers. So we'll start by num. This will have the ID 7. As you see, we got 7, 8, and 9. So I will duplicate it. 8. And then we got 9 here. And then we got 4, 5, 6 and minus. So subtract, minus. We still got the multiplication before it. So we gotta move this one here. Okay, then we got 4, 5 and 6. Same with IDs. 4, 5 and 6. And we got multiply. And then we got 1, 2, 3 and plus. So 1, 2 and 3. Then we got 1, 2 and 3. Then we got the plus with ID add. Then we got the 0 and the equal. So this is 0, this is equal. So this will be equals. Then we got the 0. Nice. The ID would be 0. Oh, we need to refresh. So let me refresh the port since it's not refreshing automatically. Okay, now let's add some styles. So to add some styles, let's just make a link to styles.css. Then let's create this file, which is styles.css. Okay, so first I want to start by neutralizing everything as I've taught you. So the box sizing will be border box, margin is 0, padding is 0, right? And then as you see here, we got the body. So in the body, first I will give it a background color, and this background color, I've already prepared the color scheme. So this is the background color. Then we need to be sure that the height is 100 VH, which means vertical height. And then let's be sure that we are displaying it as flex. We justify the content to the center. Then we align the items to the center. As you see, we got everything in the center. It's a great start. Now, so yeah, we want to grab this calculator, as you see, and add some stylings to it. So first, I will start by the background color. So the background color is already from the scheme I've chosen, which is the black one. And then we got some padding, right? So let's say 50 pixels padding. And then we got the width of this calculator div. It will be 500 pixels. Then we want to be sure that the border radius is 38 pixel, so that will give it this shape, these arcs. And then for sure we need some shadows, and this shadow would be like 0, 0, and then 25 pixels. Then we got 7 pixels. Then we got our color, the orange color. As you see, we got the orange color here. And now if we take a look on our HTML in the hierarchy, what we can do is to add another container here, display. This is much better for sure. Now let's grab this display, and we want to be sure that the height is 100 pixels. Oof, it's starting to look better. And then we got to display flex. As usual, we align items to the center. Then we justify content. Let's try to justify it to the center. As you see, it doesn't make sense to justify it on the center. Here it's justified on the end. So to justify it on the end, you choose flex end. Then we need some margins, as you see here. So let's give it some margin. This is just like to make it a bit bigger, because as you see, this dude is massive here. Then the background color should be the same. So this line will not benefit us a lot, but let's just be sure that the background of the input is also the same color that we have. We add some paddings, 12 pixels paddings. Then we want the font size to be 2.5 rem. So 2.5 rem is approximately about 25 pixels. So what's happening is like the rem just grabs the main font size, which is not written here, so it will be actually responsive. If the main font size is 20 pixels, then we got the 2.5 or 10 pixels, then the 2.5 is basically 25. The 2.5 rem is 25 pixels, and so on. I mean, an easy calculation would be just every one rem is 10 pixels. So this helps us a bit just to keep things more responsive. So now inside the display, as you see, we got the input. So let's grab the input class. Be sure the font size is a bit bigger there. Yes, that's what we need. And the color is black now. So what we need is this color, same as background, which is actually this is the alternative of the white color. Holding ourselves on these color schemes, because when you choose a good color scheme, you will see that it's much better, man. Much better than just like white and black. So it's a version of white in a way, but it has some orange into it. And now let's style the bottoms, because as you see, we still have these bottoms here. They need some styles, man. So let's grab the bottom. We'll give it, let's be sure that the border is none. So this is much better. As you see, they became smaller. Let's add some paddings. So we want 25 pixels and then 0. So the 25 pixels is vertically and the 0 is horizontally. That's why the bottoms became now long. Let's now edit the font size. One more time, I will give it 2.5 AM. They became massive. So as you see, the background color of the bottoms is the same of the background. So let's give it the right background color. Nice. And then we want to be sure that the color is white. The color of the font is white, or version of white. It's looking much better with time. Okay, so let's just focus on the AC. As you see, focus on the AC. So we need some orange shadows around every single bottom, as you see. So let's add some box shadow. So we need 0, 0, then 10 pixels, 2 pixels. And be sure that the color is the orange. Let's be sure that the border radius, let's give it about 13 pixels. That will give us this roundy shape. And now it looks pretty good, man. All we need to do is to align these in a better order. So what I would do is to grab the main container. As you see, it's the bottoms. So we grab the bottom and we display it as grid. Okay, that went too far. So we want to be sure that the grid, it has it has 4 columns. So let's be sure that our grid has 4 columns. So grid templates columns should be repeat. Repeat is this method that allows us to repeat 4 columns, and every single column will be one fraction. So they aligned in a great way, as you see. But we need some gaps, because as you see, we have some gaps here between the bottoms. A gap of 25 pixels. Here we go. It looks much better, man. So what do we still have? As you see, when you hover on the bottom, we need some effect. So button hover, we just change the background color into this lighter black or like kind of gray. So as you see, let's check it. Now it does the effect that we need. Okay. So as you see, the numbers are white, although the operators are orange. And if we check our code, I've already thought on that, and I gave here OP class for the operators. So all we need to do is to grab the OP and be sure that the color is orange. We save, and you see it looks much better, man. Now we still have these two buttons here, and as you see, it's taking the size of two buttons, not one. So to accomplish that, we basically grab this bottom here. That means we span it into fractions, and then the same should be done to the equals. For sure you can group these two classes here, but I'm not gonna do that, just more clear like this. Then we got some border radius 13 pixels. This is already done, so the border is already 13 for every single button. Now the only thing that we need to be sure of is to assign the orange color to the font of the equal, because it's an operator. So let's go. Now it looks much better, but the font is smaller than I wanted. So let me try to give it 4M. Okay, so let's go for 4M now. Or we could do 2M, gives us what we want to. Nice. Now we got the design that we want to. So if we make it bigger, it looks pretty good. It's really good. Still, we got the bottoms wider. So let's be sure about that. So I got it. The only problem is this neutralizer. I just didn't use it in the main code. So let's keep it out. I just didn't use the neutralizer as I've built it the first time. So as you see, it looks pretty good. Now we still have the responsiveness. So let's check that. As you see, it's smashing. Let's check it. So we want to check the breakpoints, right? So as you see, we have multiple breakpoints. We got the 700, 400, 300, 200. We got about 4 breaking points. So let's get it done. I will just copy paste the media queries here. You can do the same. You can get the code in the link in the description. It's nothing complex. All I've done is chose these breaking points, which are 700, 400, and 300, and adjusted the styling a bit. The main styling that I've adjusted are like the calculator, which is the main container that we have. So I've decreased the padding a bit, the width a bit. Then I adjusted the display, which is surrounding this input. Adjusted the buttons, which is like the wrapper surrounding these whole buttons, and then I adjusted the bottom a bit. And as you see, the more we get down with the width of the screen, the less padding we have, the less width we have, and so on. So it's pretty easy, straightforward, to the point. Now let's get into the logic of the calculator. Now we got a pretty good calculator. It's also responsive. Let's test it. So as you see, it's responsive on different devices. Now there is one problem which is happening. As you see, this problem here, we got this problem because of the border radius of the container. And as you see, it's happening just like from above, from the top. That means basically that it's coming from this display, and all we need is a border radius of 25 pixels to solve the whole problem. I zoomed in a bit, that's why it looks that weird. So now let's work on the logic. So we need a JavaScript file. I will call it script.javascript, and here we will be writing our JavaScript. So let's link it with the index.html. I will be doing the link at the bottom. So script, then we got the source attribute. Now we want to pass in the script.js /, that means in this directory that we are in, as you see. So in the same directory we got script.js. Now let's test it, just if it's connected in the right way. So let's log something to the console. Hey, and if we test it, as you see, the test is true. Now since we are going to test, I would just go for this view. So I will be writing and testing directly. This is much better. Let's get started. So first, we want to define the input, and the input, as you know, we will be just grabbing using the DOM. So we grab the document object, we get the element by ID. So we get the element from the hierarchy of HTML, and this input here, as you see, it has already the ID input. Now after doing that, we'll have an array of all the buttons. Let me just grab all the buttons that we have. Be sure that we make an array out of these, so array from all of these. Now to see what's happening, let's just log these buttons and check if it's working. And as you see, we grabbed all the buttons that we have here into an array. Now we want to save our operator when we click on it. That's why I'm gonna create a string which is empty, and it's gonna be the operator. And for sure we want to save the data, which are the numbers that we are operating on, and the best data structure to use here is an array. Now let's remove this this log to the console. So now we want to map. So what map does, it grabs every single button, and I'm using now the arrow function. So what I'm doing is for every single button, we want to add an event listener. I will be adding an event listener, and the event listener will be a click event listener. So when we click on any of these buttons, we want an event to happen. So this event is called E, and we want something to happen whenever we click on the button. So think about it. What do we want to do? We want to grab the button and check what's inside the button, because if we check what's inside, then we can tell what we are clicking. So all we need to do is to create a variable where we can save the text which is already inside the button. So we grab the E, which is the event. It's an object. So before I do it, let me show you what the E is. So I'm gonna log it to the console just to show it to you. So if I click on AC, I got the whole E. So in the whole E, what we need in our case is what is inside this button. As you see, you got a lot of keys here. We want this key, which is the target. In the target key, we need the inner text. So if you search for it, let's search for it, inner text. As you see, inner HTML or inner text AC. So we need this one. We need the target, and then inside the target, we need the inner text. Now, inner text is much safer than inner HTML. That's why I'm using it. So now let's check. If I click on AC, we got AC, DE, point. So whatever you click, we are now logging it to the console. What we want to do, instead of logging it to the console, we want to save it in a variable, which is called button text. So now we have multiple things that are going to happen. So we want to have some conditions, right? So if this button text is equal to AC, and I'm using the 3 equals here, that means it's going to even check the type. And we know already that the type of AC is a string, because every single inner text of these is string. So if the bottom text is AC, what we want to do is to reset the input. So we grab the input. As you see, the input, we are just grabbing the input element and want to be sure that the inner text of this input should be empty. Not just that, we want to empty the data where we usually save our data that we are going to calculate, and we want to even reset the operator. So let's check it now. Now, we didn't write anything else, that's why. So let's just continue, because we are resetting now the input, but it's already reset here. We didn't write any other logic. So let's continue with the logic. The other case that we need is else if the bottom text is now DE, what we want to do is to remove the last element in the input. Let's check the main one. As you see here, AC resets everything. That means it clears this. Now the DE, it removes the last element in this input text, right? So to do that, we are going to grab the input and check the inner text inside it, and we want it to be the input.innerText.slice 0 minus 1. So what this really does is it removes the last element, as we've seen here. It removes the 9 in this case. If we got 7, it removes the 7, and so on. Now the third operator that we have, else if the bottom text is equal to dot. Now we have the dot, right? So as you see the dot here, so let's check the dot. What does the dot really do? As you see, it writes the dot, and if you click one more time, nothing happens, because it knows already that there is already one dot, so you can't add 2 dots. So now let's implement this logic. So what we want to really do is we want to grab the input.innerText, and all we want to do is to add this dot, what is already saved in this bottom text, into the text, in the inner text of the input. So let's check what's really happening now. If you click on dot, it's already there. The problem is it's continuing. You can do it endlessly. You can do it multiple times. And we want to secure that. We don't want to let the user to put so many points. That's why we want to check if the input.innerText is including. So includes is JavaScript method, which allows us to check the string if it includes some specific symbol. So now if it includes the dot, we don't want to allow it. So that means if it doesn't include the dot, and just if it doesn't include the dot, then we allow the dot to be added. Let's check the logic now. Click dot one time. And even if you click it multiple times, I'm clicking it now, it doesn't do anything. Nice. The next case is the equal. So now if we click on the equal, so we want to be sure that we want to check if the bottom text is equal to the equal. So that means if we click on the equal, what happens is we want to push the data, which is already in the input field, into the data. So data push, because data is an array, as you see. So we push inside this array. What do we push? We push the text, the inner text of the input, inner text. That means basically whatever is here is gonna push into this array. Now after pushing it into the array, we want to create a variable, which is the result, and we want to evaluate the result, using the eval method from JavaScript. What I want to do is to join this data, because as you see, let's click on evaluate. Evaluate method from JavaScript, it accepts a string as a parameter. So as you see, the parameter, it's a string that contains valid JavaScript code. And in our case, these are numbers and operators. So it's already JavaScript, valid JavaScript. We didn't code that yet, but that's what we are planning to do. So evaluate this data.join. So we grab basically what's inside this array. We'll make a string out of it. So for example, an example for that is like 1 times 3 as a string. And now this string is evaluated by JavaScript automatically. Yes, but we want to be sure to make a space, keep a space, right? And now after calculating the result, for sure, we want to update the inner text of the input to this result, what we've already calculated. Now guess what? After calculating the result, we want to reset the data, and we'll do that by basically assigning an empty array. The same we do for the operator. So that means we refresh our calculator and reset its data whenever we click on evaluate. And after we already calculated the result and printed the result. So now we've already captured the AC, DE, the dot, and the equal. We still have the operators, so let's cover the operators. So what I want to do is, if the bottom text is true, and not just true, these are not any data. As you see, these are not numbers. So what we could do is to tell JavaScript specifically, if we parse this bottom text, what we already have, if we parse it, then we want to be sure that it's not a number. So how to be sure that parsed version of this string is not a number? We use the isNaN function from JavaScript. So if this parsed string is not a number, then it's an operator. So if it's an operator, what we want to do is grab the operator, which is a string, and add to it the bottom text, or basically it's equal to the assign the bottom text to it. So now we got our operator. Keep in mind that you got another input field where you have the number. So we want to grab the number, which is in the input field, and save it. And we are going to save it in the data array. So to save that, we grab the input. As you see, we use the push method inner text. So push the input inner text into this data. And for sure, after doing that, we want to push the operator. And then after doing that, we empty the inner text of the input. Okay, so let me show you what I'm doing here, the logic of it on the screen. What we are doing here is we got the 0. We didn't write the logic of the numbers yet. We got the 0. Since we've got the 0 and we are clicking on something which is not a number, so it's gonna be checked. So this string that we have, we transform it into int. So in our case, let's assume we clicked on the multiplication. So what happens is the multiplication as a string is parsed into int, so it's still a operator, and it's not a number. So we get inside it and we save it in the operator string. And then we get the input text, which was the 0, which was here. We save it in the data. Now the data, so the data in our case got the 0, and then it got in the second one, this operator, because we are pushing that too, as you see. And then we empty. Now we still have the last case, which is what if we click on the number? Since it's the last case, so that means else, all we need to do is to add it to the inner text of the input. Now let's check it. This is our work. Let's refresh. So we got 0. We click on 1, then times 2 is equal 2. Now we have 2. So 2 is a number. We are clicking on it operator. So what happens, it's saved in the data array, the 2, and the multiplication 2. And then we add now another number. Now we click one more time. That's another number. It's not working yet. Let's save. And as you see, we just forgot this mini plus. That means we need to add what we are clicking into the inner text of the input. Now it should work. If we click 8 and then 8, 8, as you see, it works. A real example is 12. So we covered the first case, else this one. We got 12 because we clicked 1. And then as we clicked 2, all the conditions were wrong except for this one. That's why we just added that into the input. Now let's use an operator, multiplication. So what happens in the operator, it grabs the operator and save it in the operator string, and then grabs this 12 and save it in the data, push it to the data, and then push the operator above it. So let's try it. As you see, now we got our data array having 12 and then times. Let's now choose another number, 3. Now the data is still just 12 and the operate 12 times. Now if you click on evaluate on the equal, before we click it, let's see what will happen. So if you click on the equal, what happens, the first thing, what is in the inner text of the input is gonna be pushed to the data. That's the first thing. If we click now on equal, the 3 will be saved. Then we got this data, which contains 3 elements, 12 times 3. And this 12 times 3 will be joined into a string and evaluated using JavaScript. And then 12 times 3, as you know, it's 36. And it will be, as you see here in the evaluation, printed into the input field. So let's see the magic. 36. So 12 times 3 is equal to 36. And here we go. Now we can delete the last one. Reset. This is our calculator. As I've said, if you want the code, check it in the description. And with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me, what did you enjoy the most? And which videos do you want me to do in the future? Which applications do you want to build? tell me in the comments, because this video was an idea of ManCam 3736. And with that, like the video if you benefited, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be a better developer. Here's your Rajad. See you in the next video.